hymn is number 265, O Sacred Head Now Wounded. And please join us and rise in body and spirit to sing.
Good morning. Happy Easter, everybody. It's good to look out and see you all here. Thank you for showing up today. Today we're going to welcome and greet one another in just a moment here in the service, and then during the fellowship hour we're going to greet one another, and also during the grandest Easter egg hunt we've ever had here. So look forward to that. To greet another person is to go on an adventure. You're never sure exactly where it might lead. Some welcomes here, many of them in fact, have led to new friendships, new relationships, new ventures. Who knows who you will meet, what things you're going to discover through your conversations with other people here. Why don't we take just a moment to greet one another here in the service, and then I'll ring the bell to call us back into order. But take a moment to stand up, mix around, say hello to one another, Happy Easter. That's just the start. Hopefully you'll get to pick up your conversations after the service, and that you'll meet somebody new today and everybody will feel connected. It's really important to us that everybody who comes here feels welcome and included. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Pickett, your celebrant today, in place of Brenna Norval, who unfortunately got a really bad cold. It's not COVID, but she can't talk, so she asked me to step in for her today. So if you like what I read, be sure and drop her a note and tell her that you liked what she picked to hear. The first thing is a reading, number 504, from the Singing Living Tradition by E.E. Cummings. I thank you, God, for this amazing day, for the leaping, greening spirits of trees and a blue, true dream of sky. and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I, who have died, am alive again today. And this is the Son's birthday. This is the birthday of life and of love and wings, and of the gay, great, happening, limitless earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any lifted from the know of all nothing, human merely being doubt unimaginable you. Now the ears of my ears awake, and the eyes of my eyes are open. May our senses be open to the renewal of spring as we say our affirmation. Love is our doctrine. Compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration, build a community of caring fellowship, nurture the hopes, and serve the needs of our world. Athena is here to help us light our chalices. The first chalice we light is for our congregation here, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem. Go ahead. The second chalice we light is for our Unitarian Partner Church in Šimenfalva, Transylvania, Romania. And the third chalice we light is for our children and youth, both in lifespan religious education and in the world at large. Go ahead, blow it out. Nice and hard. Ready? Thank you, Athena. Go ahead and go down and join Lynn, and you'll be back here in a second. May the light of this chalice give light and warmth to our community when we are joyful and when we are despair. May we feel the warmth spread from our circle to wider and wider circles until all know they belong to the circle of life. By Betsy Barr. Please join me in singing The Flame into Life.
Good morning. I'd like to invite all the children, those who are young in heart or just need an excuse, you can come with your child or without one, and have a seat. And this morning, make sure you're facing here because our story is going to be projected up on the screen. And I'm going to sit behind you so that where the slides are. This is a book called The Good Egg by Jory John, illustrated by Pete Oswald. Oh, hello. I was just rescuing this cat. Know why? Because I'm a good egg. A very good egg. It's true, I do all kinds of good things, like I carry your groceries, I'll water your plants, I'll change your tires, I'll paint your house. If you need any help whatsoever, I'm your egg. I've always been a good egg. It's been this way from the start, even in my earliest days back at the store. There were a dozen of us living together under one recycled roof. There was Meg and Peg and Greg and Clegg and Shell and Shelley and Sheldon and Shelby and Egbert and Frank and other Frank. The other 11 eggs weren't on their best behavior. They weren't exactly good. They ignored their bedtime. They only ate sugary cereal. They threw tantrums. They cried for no reason. They broke their stuff on purpose. Meanwhile, I tried to take charge. I tried to fix their bad behavior. I tried to keep the peace because I was a good egg. A very good egg. Nobody seemed to care, though. Every night I was exhausted. My head felt scrambled. Then, one fateful morning, I noticed some cracks in my shell. They were everywhere. My doctor said it was from all the pressure I was putting on myself. The pressure of making sure everybody was as good as me. I was cracking up, literally. Something had to change. I'd had enough. I told Meg and Peg and Greg and Clegg and Shell and Shelley and Sheldon and Shelby and Egbert and Frank and other Frank that I was leaving. I can't be the only good egg in a bad carton, I said. Blah, 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 they replied. I left that night. I wandered from town to town. The hours became days. The days became weeks. I lost track of time. I was alone. Out there on the road, under the stars, I really tried to focus on myself and what I needed. I took walks. I read books. I floated in the river. I wrote in my journal. I found simple moments to be quiet. I breathed in. I breathed out. I even started painting. For once, I found time for me. And guess what? Little by little, the cracks in my shell started to heal. My head no longer felt scrambled. I started to feel like myself again. So I've made a big decision. I'm returning to my old carton and my friends because I'm kind of lonely out here. This time, I know what I need to do. I'll try not to worry so much. I'll be good to my fellow eggs while also being good to myself. Here we go. Everybody missed me. I missed them too. Hello, Meg. Howdy, Peg. Hey, Greg. Greetings, Clegg. What's up, Shell? Aloha, Shelly. Hey ho, Sheldon. Hi, Shelby. Good day, Egbert. What's happening, Frank? Howdy do, other Frank. Sure, every once in a while somebody is still a little bit bad. But it's not like before. Here's what I realized. The other eggs aren't perfect, and I don't have to be either. I'm okay with that. Yep, the old carton is back together. We're a solid dozen again. It's good to be home. Happy Easter.
I invite you now to settle into this moment. Maybe take a deep breath and be aware of life in this very moment of time. Feel the deeper rhythms of our life, the deeper rhythms that show us our way. Let's listen to the words of the great sage Shantideva, the great compassionate sage. Let us listen to his words. May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without light, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, and a servant to all in need. For as long as space endures, and as long as living beings remain, until then may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. Compassion is our way. May we walk along with the ancient sage this path of compassion and understanding. And gratitude is our path. And on this Easter Sunday, we remember the ancient prophet, Rabbi Jesus, who brought the teachings of the Jewish tradition into sharp spiritual focus, who embodied radical love as he moved through his life. A great spiritual comet who flashed across our earthly skies, showing humankind the way. Let us remember him, Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus the Anointed One, Jesus Christ. Let us remember him with gratitude. Let us remember all those who have revealed to us the true and better angels of our natures. Amen.
Good morning. I'm Eric Schumann from Lifeline's Lay Ministry. I'd like to thank our choir for the beauty and the grace that you bring to our service today. If you have a joy or a sorrow to share, there are two ways to do that. You can write it in the book that's in the foyer each Sunday before the service, or you can submit it online on our church's website. We have one joy and one sorrow to share this morning. The sorrow is from Denise and Teresa, who are mourning the loss of their dog Beasley, who brought us joy and comfort and connection to our lives. She was old and tired and winding down, but active and happy and loving us and life, as well as her dog and kitty brothers and sisters to the very end. We will miss her. The joy is from Carol Lee Anderson, who says, "My job changed my hours, and now I'm excited to come back to church every Sunday. I'm so happy." And we light one more candle for those unexpressed joys and sorrows. Lifeline's lay ministry members are here to extend Reverend Rick's ministry to both members and friends of this congregation who would benefit from a caring presence. And if you would like us to reach out to you or someone you know, call the church office or contact us through the email address which is on the church website.
344, A Promise Through the Ages Rings. We will play this all the way through because this is a newer hymn on the piano once, and then we will all sing it together.
In the tomb of the soul, we carry secret yearnings, pains, frustrations, loneliness, fears, regrets, and worries. In the tomb of the soul, we take refuge from the world and its heaviness. In the tomb of the soul, we wrap ourselves in the security of darkness. Sometimes this is a comfort. Sometimes this is an escape. Sometimes it prepares us for experience. Sometimes it insulates us from life. Sometimes this tomb life gives us time to feel the pain of the world and reach out to heal others. Sometimes it numbs us and locks us up with our own concerns. In this season, where light and dark balance the day, we seek balance for ourselves. Grateful for the darkness that has nourished us, we push away the stone and invite the light to awaken us to the possibilities within us and among us. Possibilities for new life in ourselves and in our world.
Thank you, Sarah, for stepping in for Brenna, and we hope you get your voice back, Brenna. So, Easter Sunday. I remember lots of Easters in my lifetime. During my childhood in Columbus, Georgia, Easter Sunday was nice and predictable. Before the big day, we got new Sunday go-to-meeting clothes, having outgrown last year's. Folks down south really decked out on Easter, and it did provide a spiritual justification for sprucing up our wardrobes, and I think Jesus would have been okay with that. And I'm glad to see some hats in the sanctuary on Easter this morning. You guys are decking out, and I like it, and it's a good tradition. It's fun to do that. We got up early to drive out to beautiful Callaway Gardens outside of Columbus, Georgia, for the Easter sunrise service on the golf course. And later that day, we'd go to the Easter services at the church we always attended. Now, I love going to this Easter sunrise service. I did. Not for the spiritual sustenance it offered, but the physical sustenance it offered. Because right after the service, they had a fantastic brunch buffet in the clubhouse. Best breakfast of the year. Only time we got to eat out. A real treat. That's what got me out of bed early on Easter morning. And so while the preacher droned on about an empty tomb, my attention was focused on my empty stomach. I didn't really need to pay attention to what the preacher was saying because I already knew what he was going to say anyway. The same thing every Easter. What an unexpected miracle it was that Jesus' tomb had been found empty and that he had bodily resurrected. And I wasn't sure what I thought about that. Seemed like a good thing, I guess, but it seems so remote. Today, I honor and respect my evangelical friends who believe in Jesus' physical resurrection, but I view this more in figurative, symbolic, perhaps psychic event, but not literal terms. Most of us, I think, feel that way. The biblical miracles, it wasn't the resurrection that got my attention. The biblical miracles that got my attention were the ones where Jesus healed people with his touch. I loved those amazing stories about the lepers and the blind, the lame, the infirm, getting healed and rejoicing in their newfound wholeness. I also thought that Jesus walking on water on a stormy sea, no less, was pretty impressive. However, there was one miracle that confounded me. This was called the miracle of the Gadarene swine. This is when Jesus exorcised demons from two possessed men, and these demons suddenly possessed a herd of 2,000 pigs who went mad and plunged over a cliff and drowned in the Sea of Galilee. Now, I thought that was just bizarre. It's in all three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I could never figure that one out. What was that all? Why did all those pigs have to die? That miracle, I'd call it the massacre of the Gadarene swine. It disturbed me, although I must confess it did not stop me from enjoying bacon and ham at the buffet long before I went vegetarian. This strange miracle of Jesus led St. Augustine to conclude that Christians need not have any concern for animals since Jesus had not shown any, and that belief took hold in Western society. Suffice it to say for now, I don't think Jesus actually performed this bizarre miracle. Rather, this text serves certain political and theological objectives of the authors of the gospel, so I'm not going to pin this one on Jesus. These kind of biblical tales, there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that it's X-rated almost. It unsettled me. But I found comfort in the healing miracles. That seemed like a really good thing. To be able to reach out and heal people, like that poor fellow who sat in the front of the church every Sunday because that was the only place he could see. His body was so bent over by a crippling arthritis that his gaze was always directed downward. So he placed a mirror on the floor so he could angle it and he could see what everybody else could see directly. He would see a reflection of that. And I really wished I would look at him on Sundays, and I really wish that I could have healed and straightened out the body of this man who everybody admired for his steadfast attendance on Sunday. He wasn't hidden from view at all. He was part of the community. I've bashed the Southern Baptists a good deal over the years from this pulpit. But the way they included this man, the way my Southern Baptist community and my youth included this man, that was something good for me to witness. It spoke well for that community, the way they loved him, the way they loved him. They drew their inspiration from the ancient rabbi known to us as Jesus of Nazareth, who was believed to have had a healing touch. And the ancient records are very consistent on this. Jesus was seen and remembered as a healer. And there's really nothing unusual at all about that when you consider that the use of the hands for healing has been a practice in all the major religious traditions. The origins of such practices lies even deeper in the ancient past. Apparently, humankind has had a universal intuition that our hands could be instruments of healing. Ancient cultures everywhere engaged in healing practices in one form or another, which I find fascinating, that human beings around the world would sense that their hands could be used in such a loving way to promote healing. Yet as I grew older and moved away from religion, I rarely thought about Jesus anymore as I became more scientifically, secularly oriented. And I now have my doubts about the veracity of these biblical miracles. Then, too, this was during a time when the abuses of the hucksters of healing became more rampant. These are the kinds who would hire able-bodied people to come in to their gatherings in wheelchairs so that they could appear to be healed when they stood up. Thanks to the advantages afforded by new broadcast capabilities, these opportunists could now rake in millions and afford to buy mansions and personal jets. A very disheartening spectacle. And at the same time that many desperate, suffering souls were getting bilked by fake healers, there were many of us who could see right through the scams, and we ridiculed and condemned them, rightfully so. Preying on people's despair is, not to sound too judgmental, but preying on people's despair like this, it's despicable. It's despicable, really. Not a word I often use. But then, years later, closer to home, I had a sad and disappointing experience. A friendly acquaintance, a New Age sort, invited me to an event where I was told there were genuine healers. I was agnostic, leaning towards skeptic, uncertain, but always hoping for good things. And what struck me most about this gathering were the people who showed up. Word had really gotten out. I had no idea there were so many people in crutches and walkers and wheelchairs. And I saw many sad and despairing looks on people's faces. Just the kind I imagined Jesus saw 2,000 years ago. And seeing these people, I felt compassion. I felt compassion for them. You could tell they had been suffering for a long time. And I really did, that these healers would be the ones who could actually provide some relief. Although I have my doubts. And these doubts were confirmed for me later after I witnessed the whole operation. I saw the cash exchanging hands. This may have been packaged as New Age healing, but to me it seemed like just a variation of the same old devious game. What easier prey is there than desperate, hurting people hoping for healing? And given the great potential for abuse like this, and also because we tend to stay grounded in our rationality in Unitarian Universalist tradition, we shy away from laying on of hands and that sort of thing in our tradition. Not that we're against it, but you're not likely to see it happen here so much. Back in the early 19th century, Ralph Waldo Emerson referred to the Unitarians as God's frozen people, so we're a little uptight sometimes. But that was during our more snobbish days, and only on the Unitarian side. The Universalists were always common folk. And we've thawed out since then. But still, we shy away from excessive emotionality in worship and practices like laying on of hands that would seem to imply we believe something maybe we don't, or at least not all of us believe. So I was taken aback many years ago one day when a member invited me to lunch. He invited me to lunch. It was really important that we set this lunch up at a certain time, and he invited me over, and he posed a question. And he asked, would we, the congregation, lay on our hands and pray for him during our Sunday worship service just a few days before he was about to have risky surgery, major surgery? Now, there was no way that I could or would rebuff such a request. I wanted Herb to get the spiritual support he needed at such a frightening moment. And yet I also wanted to respect the members of this congregation, some of whom you don't practice traditional prayer, especially one involving a laying on of hands. Some of you do practice prayer, some of you don't. I didn't want to enforce something on everybody. So here's what we did. At the end of the service, during the announcements that day, I let the congregation know of Herb's request, and I invited those who cared to join us after the service for this ritual, and this gave people a choice. Those who didn't want to participate for one reason or another could bow out gracefully, and many did. But it didn't matter, because a good number of us gathered in the back corner over there. There weren't all that stuff there. We had room to do it there. But we gathered in that corner, and we laid our hands on Herb as I prayed extemporaneously, as I have often prayed for members and friends over the years, as I've stood next to you in your hospital beds, or while you were in hospice care, or maybe when you were at home. I was initiated into this prayer practice many years ago when I was a student chaplain in Atlanta at the same hospital where I had been born 30 plus years earlier. I thought that was neat. And, of course, when you walk around with a chaplain badge on and you go visit people, people will oftentimes, in a hospital, people in distress, will oftentimes ask you to pray for them. And so I had to figure out how to do this with spiritual integrity. So even as I pray extemporaneously, I never stray from certain core theological convictions. I am not praying for divine intervention and healing miracles. It wouldn't bother me if that happened, but I'm not praying for that directly. Rather, I pray that we might become aware of the presence of the sacred already within us and amongst us and beyond us. That we might be aware of the miracle of life and love and all that soars beyond our comprehension. I pray that our hearts will be open to love. Some folks prefer a guided healing meditation, no theological language. Some prefer a real prayer with all of that. And some prefer just silence while we hold hands. But I've discovered that such simple rituals have a way of focusing people's hearts and minds, and all pretenses fall away at that moment, and we can really see that we really do love one another. Almost always there is touch, never unwanted or inappropriate, but the kind of touch that offers connection, grounding, compassion, support. And so I will place my hand on your shoulder and may stroke your brow. I will hold your hand, and I will hold you in my embrace, just as I have been held in your embrace when we grieve. We touch to heal. However that may come, whether it is the healing of the body or perhaps more often it's the healing of the heart and soul. I don't pretend to understand all that is going on. It's a mystery for me in a good way. And so we gathered in the rear of this room many years ago. I don't even remember how many it was. And we prayed for Herb that Sunday. We prayed for him. And later that week, I saw him lying unconscious in the hospital bed. His poor body was poked with more tubes and wires than I think I'd ever seen. And I sensed that he wasn't going to make it. Mercifully, Herb soon died, and they unhooked all that paraphernalia, and we held his memorial service here not long thereafter. Afterwards, Millie Rochester, she was our director of religious education at the time, she and I drove up to the Veterans Hospital in Portland to settle some final affairs on Herb's behalf because he didn't have any family, and we were it. We were it. And that made me feel sad, that we were all Herb had in the world, that he didn't have a family. So, driving up to the hospital, I was feeling sad. But this visit to the hospital did not leave me feeling sad, surprisingly. This I knew, Herb had had a hard life. Small of stature himself, his tall, imposing, high-ranking military officer treated him with cruelty and contempt, as did much of society treat gay men in the 40s and the 50s and 60s when Herb was in his prime. He did what he could to get along in his life, and he had some good memories, but you could tell that overall his life on the margins had been a rough one in many ways. So we got there, we met with the staff. Surprisingly, very surprisingly, the story that the staff shared with us that day wasn't a sad one. The chaplains, the orderlies, the nurses, the doctors, everyone had the same story to tell us, and they wanted to make sure we heard it. Herb had told them over and over again about our congregational blessing of him. He spoke of it to them often, again and again. It was his way of saying to them, you see, I am a person of worth. Those people affirmed me. They cared enough about me to gather around me and offer me this prayer. And when I prayed for Herb, I was hardly cognizant of the fact that we were, in effect, his only family and that this prayer would mean so much to him. And this points to two things. One, I can be pretty clueless and obtuse. And two, it doesn't matter if I'm obtuse sometimes because people will get what they need. I think I could have mumbled almost any words in my prayer because it wasn't the words that mattered. It was the visible support of the community and the genuine love in our hearts at that moment. So many people surrounding him, laying hands on his shoulders as I spoke from the heart, a vocal conduit of love. And so I've realized that what Herb received from our prayer is what all of us yearn for, which is the deepest possible assurance that we are loved and accepted just as we are. That's what that prayer gave Herb, the deepest possible assurance that we are loved and accepted just as we are. And that's how we blessed Herb with our prayer, the precious memory of which sustained him as he faced the greatest trial of his life, greater even than facing the Nazis in the dead of winter during the Battle of the Bulge during World War II, when Herb was still a teenager. He was proud to be a World War II veteran. He survived on the battlefield, but not his final battle at the Veterans Hospital. Our prayer didn't heal his body. Yet I think you could say that this prayer did heal. There's an old hymn that I love that has the lines, "There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul." Sin here meaning a state of separation. And I have discovered there is a balm of love that heals the wounds that were inflicted on us in whatever cruel and callous worlds we have known, wounds that have entombed us in fear and self-disdain and doubt, anxiety and despair. There's more healing energy flowing through life than I can begin to comprehend. I'm simply amazed to watch a cut on my finger heal. What a wonderful process that is, just to see how the skin heals. And my experience in the ministry has only served to amaze and confuse me, since I've seen instances where there were people who said, you've only got a year to live, and they kept saying it year after year, and after a while it kind of became a joke. You've only got 1 year to live, and that's the standard thing. And I have seen instances of rapid decline and everything in between. So whether or not miraculous healing happens, I don't shut the door on anything. It is, I know, important that we touch, that we compassionately connect, especially during the hardest times, because it does promote healing in its own way. Whenever we speak of healing the body from disease and illness, there's no escaping the fact that no matter how much that type of healing occurs, the body eventually gives out. It might take a century or more, in some cases, for death to win out, but death always scores a victory over the body. But death is natural. It is not the enemy. It is the fear of death, the fear of being lost and unloved and unknown and unfulfilled. That is what entombs us in this life. And too many are entombed in fear and hatred, in loneliness and despair, entombed and cut off from the fullness of life. And you can push against your tomb. We all get trapped in them. You can push against your tomb from the inside, but you can never push the lid off on your own. It's something unexpected and unearned that lifts it off and frees you. You are freed from the tomb of separateness and death in life by something beyond, whether it comes through the loving touch of others, a sublime piece of art, or through some grace that comes from a source, a sacred source, I would say, beyond our knowing. And you are surprised by joy, by love, by beauty beyond your understanding. It happens. And freed from the tombs of isolation and despair, you can sense that you are part of something profound and sublime beyond our understanding, that there is something within us that transcends the seeming finality of death. And I believe that's what Easter celebrates. On Easter Sunday especially, I remember with gratitude those whose touch and teaching and artistry feed me from my tombs of isolation and despair. Even as I remember on Easter Sunday the amazing power you and I possess to heal the hurting with our touch. Happy Easter, everyone. Will you join me in a prayerful meditation? On this Easter, there's much sorrow and suffering in our world this year. And yet the promise of Easter comes again and again. And we think, what does this mean? What does this mean for me? The story of rebirth, the story of resurrection. What does it mean to me? And as you explore, look deeply within, you discover that there is a love greater than our understanding. It's the discovery of that love that we celebrate on Easter. A love that does not die. A love that sustains us through all the difficult moments. A love that sustains us even through death. feel that love within us now on this Easter Sunday. When we feel that love, may we show that love. May we be that love. Amen.
We support UUCS through our pledges, time, and connections with one another. We support the Salem community through donations to the Marion Polk Food Share, and for the month of April, the Minister's Discretionary Fund. The Minister's Discretionary Fund is a separate account that the minister can use to provide confidential assistance to those facing emergency financial need, for congregational or community programs in need of seed money, or for other tax-exempt purposes stated in the board policy. How to donate? Here in person, you may put donations in the little red wagon for the Marion Polk Food Share. Monetary donations in cash or check may be placed in the bags that will be momentarily passed around, or please visit the website to donate. Thank you for maintaining the community of UUCS and for the wider community of Salem.
Wanted to draw your attention to a few announcements today. First of all, It's the Easter egg hunt, so go out and watch the kids and have a good time. I hope you can be part of that today, too. After the service today, David Haber, I think I saw David here. There's David. He's got some books on promoting healthy aging booklets. You wrote it. It's available in the fellowship hall after the service today. Those are really good books. I've read it, I looked through it, and it's got some wonderful advice. So I suggest you get a copy. And David will be there in the fellowship hall. They're going to be having discussion roundtables to discuss the content of these booklets. So pick up a flyer and learn about that so you can understand what the opportunity is there. So be sure to get your book after the service today. You can see that next Sunday we have our Reverend Bonnie Tarwater here. She's a member of our congregation, I'm happy to say, and shares the ministry in many different good ways. And she's going to be delivering an Earth Day sermon. So please do show up for next Sunday. And you can check our website so you can see how to keep up with the various things going on in the community, how you can find out what's going on, and if you need to get an email or newsletter or something like that, you can see the contact information right up there so you can really get plugged in. So I hope you do that. I also wanted to talk this morning and celebrate something. Hey, is Paul Wilson or John Davenport here? They're way back there. Is anybody else from the HHV board here? It's been a long journey. We have the Habitat in Hope Village board that's been a long time in coming. They've been working to figure out a way to help the homeless people in our community, and they've had to be very flexible, very adaptable over time. But now they have designed and financed a shower trailer at the Church of the Park, where if you ever had to go for a long time without a hot shower, you know what a great thing that is. So I just wanted for our congregation to celebrate that, because members of this congregation have played a key role in helping to make this Habitat in Hope Village shower trailer a reality. And if you want to check it out more after the service in the fellowship hall, John and Paul will be there, and they can show you some blueprints and drawings and projections of what it's going to look like. And this has inspired other people in our community to do similar things. So it's a beautiful thing. And I just wanted to celebrate that because that happened here. So that's good. It's a beautiful thing. We won't see it. You have to go over someplace else to see it. But anyway, I think that's all I have for the announcements. And happy Easter again.
Before we do that, that's quite all right. I'm glad that you're ready to go. But I think we first need to get Reverend Rick up here to light the social justice candle as a symbolic reminder of the light and justice we carry out into the world. As we extinguish the chalices, let us hear these words by May Sarton. Help us to be the always hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who know that without darkness, nothing comes to birth, as without light, nothing flowers. Nice. Now may we join Robert as he leads us in hymn 268, Jesus Christ is Risen Today.
Praise your voice and
each other or hold hands as we say our closing words together. May faith in the spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come. Thank you.
If people want to turn in their music, the baskets are